Welcome back to Smile Sessions. I'm your host, Christina Perry, and this is the podcast where we discuss ways to live healthier, happier, and more fulfilling lives. I'm so grateful you're here today. Over the past few weeks, I've started something really special on the podcast. We're diving deeper into the ideas from my new book, Stop Disappearing: How to Start Choosing Yourself Without Guilt or Fear. These episodes aren't about reading the book to you. They're about having the conversations that happen after you've closed the book. Today's episode is inspired by one of the chapters that has already sparked some powerful conversations. It's called The Rehab Center Girlfriend. And before some of you think, well, that's not me, I want you to stay with me. Because this chapter isn't really about men. It's about us. It's about why so many compassionate, loving, intelligent women find themselves believing it's their job to heal someone else. Maybe you've dated someone emotionally unavailable. Maybe you've stayed because you saw their potential. Maybe you've convinced yourself that if you just love them enough, if you were patient enough, if you understood them better, eventually, they'd become the person you knew they could be. If any of this feels familiar, today's conversation is for you. It doesn't feel like a problem at first. It feels like purpose. We don't just date him. We study him. We notice the pauses in his speech, the way he deflects certain conversations, the moments where he almost opens up and then pulls back. We start connecting the dots he hasn't even acknowledged yet. We see the version of him that could exist if he just softened a little, trusted a little more, healed what he hadn't faced. And somewhere along the way, we stop being in a relationship and start being in a renovation project. We're patching drywall, installing empathy where silence used to live, and trying to bring light into rooms he's kept closed for years. We celebrate small wins like milestones, a deeper conversation, a moment of vulnerability, a glimpse of effort. And we convince ourselves it means progress. It feels meaningful. It feels like love. But if we're honest, it also feels like work. At some point, the relationship stops feeling like a partnership and starts feeling like a full-time, unpaid internship at a one-man emotional rehab center. And the part that's hardest to admit is that we chose it. I remember writing that chapter, and I remember realizing something that completely changed how I viewed relationships. I wasn't dating partners. I was adopting projects. And I know that's uncomfortable to hear, because most of us didn't wake up one day and think, I'd really love to emotionally rehabilitate another human being. It happened gradually. We met someone who had potential, someone who'd been hurt, someone who had a difficult childhood, someone who just needed the right person, and somehow that person became us. Here's the tricky part. Helping people feels good. Being compassionate is beautiful. Supporting someone through difficult seasons is part of healthy relationships. But there's a difference between walking beside someone and carrying them. Somewhere along the way, we stopped asking, are they working on themselves? And start asking, what else can I do? We become researchers. We read books. We listen to podcasts. We study attachment styles. We learn about childhood trauma. We become experts in understanding everyone, except ourselves. One of the biggest lessons I've learned is this: potential is not a personality. Potential is not a commitment. Potential is not emotional availability. Potential is simply possibility. Relationships aren't built on possibility. They're built on consistency. They're built on effort. They're built on mutual growth. It's wonderful to see the best in people, but don't fall so deeply in love with who someone could become that you ignore who they're choosing to be today. That sentence changed my life because I realized I wasn't dating reality. I was dating hope. I think many of us learned at a very young age that our value came from being helpful, being needed, being dependable, being the strong one. Maybe you were the peacemaker while you were growing up. Perhaps you became emotionally mature far earlier than you should have. Maybe love felt conditional. So when you meet someone who needs healing, it feels familiar, not because it's healthy, but because it's comfortable. Sometimes our nervous system mistakes familiarity for love. Healthy love says, I'm here beside you. Rescuing says, I'll do the work for you. Healthy love encourages growth. Rescuing delays it. People grow when they decide to grow, not because someone else sacrifices enough. You cannot heal someone into loving you. You cannot earn healthy love by working harder. Earlier, I read the line, the hardest part to admit is that we chose it. I want to explain exactly what I mean. I don't mean we choose someone's dishonesty. And I don't mean that we deserved poor treatment. I don't mean another person's actions are our fault. What I mean is this. At some point, we chose to stay, not because we were weak, but because we believed that loving someone harder would eventually change the outcome. Many of us weren't choosing pain, we were choosing hope. There's a huge difference. And once we understand that, we stop blaming ourselves. Instead, we become curious. What made this feel familiar? Why did I believe I had to earn love? Why was someone else's healing more important than my own? Those are the questions that lead to freedom. This week, I'd like you to ask yourself, have I ever mistaken someone's potential for their reality? Have I ever stayed because I believed I could help someone become who I knew they could be? Do I feel responsible for another adult's happiness? Am I exhausted because I'm in a partnership? Or because I'm managing someone else's emotional life? Be honest. There's no shame in your answers. Only awareness. I want to end today's episode by speaking directly to one person. Maybe it's you. To the woman who's exhausted from carrying relationships on her shoulders. To the woman who spent years believing that if she just loved a little harder, gave a little more, waited a little longer, everything would fall into place. I want you to hear this. You were never meant to become someone's rehabilitation center. You were never meant to sacrifice your peace so someone else could find theirs. You deserve a relationship where love flows in both directions, where healing is a shared commitment, where you're appreciated, not because of everything you do, but because of who you are. The right relationship won't ask you to disappear. It will make it safe for you to be fully seen. And I hope you never settle for anything less. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. If today's episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever found yourself becoming someone's rehab center girlfriend? What did you learn from that experience? If you've enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to subscribe to Smile Sessions so you don't miss future episodes in our Stop Disappearing series. And if you'd like to go deeper, you can find Stop Disappearing: How to Start Choosing Yourself Without Guilt or Fear using the link in the description below. Until next time, take care of yourself, trust yourself, and remember, love should feel like a partnership, not a renovation project. I'm Christina Perry, and this has been another session for your soul.